Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you guys are joining us from. Hope you guys are having a fantastic Tuesday and week so far. Just to make sure that everyone can see and hear us, find the chat and let us know where you guys are joining us from today. That way we'll know that we are good to go. While you guys are finding the chat, let me just continue and say that we have a really awesome webinar and roundtable planned for you guys today. And we're going to be diving into that in just a moment. But if this is your first time with us, welcome. Well, we hold our webinars and roundtables to share some insightful and actionable insights with the SEO community and hopefully give some takeaways that will help you increase the traffic to your websites. Today, we are talking about Google Business Profile. Yeah, I can see that the chat is active, so we are good to go. So today we are going to talk about Google Business Profile. I'm sure that all of you have are very familiar with it, but we're not going to focus on the different initial steps involved in setting everything up. I'm sure that you guys already have that figured out. What we're going to focus on instead are all the different pitfalls and optimization tips and tricks that you can benefit from. And the best part of this specific event is that you get to guide this conversation forward. So be sure to use that chat to let us know what questions or issues you have with Google Business Profile, and we will be happy to answer them. So let's move on a bit further. So I'm your sort of host of today. Sherry's going to dominate the event, but either way, my name is Andrew, and I'm part of the marketing team over at SEO Ranking. And I realized that most of you guys came here not for me, but for our fantastic lineup of guests. So we are actually joined by 4 Google Business Profile product experts. And I want to remind you guys that our panel is not employed by Google. This is something they do on a volunteer basis to make our lives easier. So be kind to our panel of experts. So let me show you guys who is here today. I am happy to say that we are joined by Sherry Bonelli, owner of Early Bird Digital Marketing. Sherry has over 2 decades of experience in SEO and digital marketing under her belt. Welcome, Sherry. Happy to have you with us. Could you say a couple of words about yourself to our viewers?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm very excited to be here. Yeah, as Andrew mentioned, I've been in digital marketing since 1998, focusing primarily on search engine optimization. So I've been in the industry for a long time, and it certainly has changed a lot. I am also a Google Business Profile Platinum product expert. So I work closely with Google. I'm not a Google employee, but we are under NDA. So there's certain things we cannot talk about today, but there's certain things that we can. So we'll be able to offer you some tips and strategies as well. I also have a master's degree in internet marketing. I'm also an instructor, an adjunct instructor, and teach digital marketing courses at various universities across the country. I'm a LinkedIn learning instructor as well. And what else do I do? That's pretty much it. I do run a digital marketing agency in Cedar Rapids, Iowa called Early Bird Digital Marketing. I think that's it.
Well, great to have you with us. You have a very active and full portfolio, so we are looking forward to hearing your expertise. We are also joined by Stefan Sombarak, who is a local SEO and digital marketing expert and founder of Marketing Metrology. It's a pleasure to have you with us, Stefan. If you could say a couple of words about yourself to let the viewers know who they are going to listen to today.
Sure. Yeah. Hi, my name is Stefan. I'm a Google Business Profile product expert as well. Like Sherry, I'm a Platinum, which basically means I spend too much time in the forum troubleshooting problems and helping people out. It's not on the slide, but the whole panel is sort of equally qualified in that regard. I've been working in internet-related businesses and marketing since the late 90s as well, like Sherry. And for me, the real joy comes with working with small businesses and helping new upstarts get a foothold and get started. And I think for me, the reason is you can see a lot of change really quickly with those businesses. And to help an entrepreneur go from nothing to a business that really has a foothold is really rewarding. So for me, that's what it says on the slide. And that's why it seems or it feels like quick results that are rewarding for me and for the business owner. So that's my keen interest.
Yeah, thank you, Stefan. Pleasure to have you with us. And we are also joined by Dan Foland of Profound SEO and Digital Marketing. Happy to have you with us. He's also a Google Business Profile product expert. Happy to have you with us, Dan. Can you say a couple more words about yourself?
Sure. Thanks for having me, Andrew. I've been in the digital marketing space for over 10 years. Been a product expert for, I guess, around 2 years, and mainly in the SEO and local SEO space has been kind of my specialty, helping businesses from small one-person shops to Fortune 500 companies. So a range of different service areas in that regard.
Thank you. And last but not least, in our panel, we have Jan Gilbert, creator of Local Falcon and senior SEO expert at Sterling Sky. He is also going to share his expertise with us. Welcome, Jan. Could you say a couple of more words about yourself, please?
Sure. Hi, everyone. So like everyone else, if you want to, there we go. Like everyone else, I am a Google product expert. And just want to say it's usually rare. It's rare that we all come together because there's only a couple dozen of us in the world at this level that know the Google product expert, at least for the English speaking community. So it's rare to have 4 of us together at once. I guess my biggest claim to fame here is I'm the creator of Local Falcon, which is the original grid local maps ranking tool that a lot of other platforms have emulated. And like everyone else, again, I work with small businesses to help them as a consultant, and also in various ways to try to help them get more visible and get more leads and traffic and all that good stuff.
Awesome. We also have a couple of other slides about the platform that pulled all these experts together to host this webinar. It's SEO Ranking. And so we are an all-in-one SEO platform that covers both essential and advanced tools for SEO monitoring and market analysis. And you can see all the different badges that we got from our users and from international experts in the field of SEO and marketing. And we are a platform designed for basically everyone, business owners, SEO pros, digital agencies. So every local business definitely can take advantage of our platform and of the expertise shared during today's roundtable. So just to let you know, remind you guys not to hesitate with your questions. Write them into the chat. Whatever issues you may have with GBP, let us know, and we will do our best to address them at the moment. And you will be able to catch the replay up on our YouTube channel as soon as the webinar is basically over. So you don't need to take any notes, just sit back and soak it all in. And that pretty much does it for the intro part. Are you guys ready to rock?
Let's go.
Yeah, great. So let's just to get the ball rolling, we'll have a short question to get things started. So what are some of the best reasons to claim and optimize a Google business profile?
So I think the number one reason is claiming a Google business profile is really one of the best ways for a local business that meets with local clients, either at their location, like at their storefront or their office, or at the client's location, where they're a service area business, like a landscaper, a plumber, a tree trimmer, one of those types of businesses. Any local business that qualifies, it is the best way for them to rank high on Google. Otherwise, they have to really fight really hard to try and rank. Claiming their GBP listing gives them that edge where they show up in that 3-pack or in the local finder, which is the next step if someone clicks more places. It allows them to show up high right below the ads. And so it really, really gives them a leg up and allows them to show up high in rankings. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think, from my perspective, having a Google business profile is probably the best possible form of, free advertising that anybody can have. It can give you so much visibility. I know some businesses, they get 80-90% of their customers and clients directly from Google Business Profile, whereas a lot of other companies are spending tens of thousands of dollars on PPC and other forms of advertising, whereas you don't need to really commit a large dollar amount or any dollar amount to get your business listed and start getting new customers.
I'll just throw in something that I find really it struck me as a really significant notion. When you conduct results in the map pack, that's a ranking of business profiles. You don't even need a website to be there, but you need a business profile to be there. So it's really important that to make that distinction, that the map part of the search results is a ranking of business profiles. If you don't have a business profile, you can't be there. So it's an important part of the search results. And if you want to play in that part of the search results, you need a business profile.
And an important thing to remember, like what Dan said, some businesses get a lot of their leads through the Google listing. So a lot of what we do as product experts is to help businesses stay in compliance, because sometimes one little glitch, one little wrong tick, and your business gets suspended because you weren't within the guidelines, and then your listing might go down for a week or two. So it's really important to make sure that you're staying within the rules, to talk to someone, because it's easy to set up, but it's easy to make mistakes as well. So you want to make sure that you coordinate with someone to make sure that you're really understanding all the things, especially when you're about to make a change, a name change, an address change, phone number change, things like that, to make sure that your listing doesn't go down and disappear. And now what do you do, right? So that's what we're here for, to try to help you avoid to make those unfortunate mistakes.
Yeah, and one thing before we get into the first question, which is a great question. Google has what they call Google's guidelines for representing your business on Google. Google does update those guidelines. And so we talk to businesses all the time that get suspended, and they say, I've had my listing up for 15 years and I've never had a problem. I'm suddenly suspended. Well, Google may have changed the guidelines since you set up your original listing, and you may now be in violation. And so it's important that you read those guidelines, I would say every couple of months, to make sure there hasn't been a guideline change. So it's really important that you are up on the guidelines and make sure that nothing has changed. So we do have our first question. Anastasia asked a really great question. Can only brick and mortar stores be listed on GBP?
I'll throw in, because this is something I've been working on a little bit lately with a couple of cases. Short answer is no, you can have a home-based business. I think the core tenet that you have to understand is one business is entitled to one business profile. And one of the things that Google's trying to prevent is businesses creating a whole bunch of business profiles for a single business. So a single business that's home-based certainly can have a business profile. If you find yourself suspended, you're going to need to prove to Google with some documentation that you have a home-based business, that you have some base of operations that isn't a brick and mortar storefront, but they certainly allow for it. And the easiest way to describe it is that you create a business profile without an address, or you clear the address. And instead of showing an address, which would give you a pin on the map, you set a service area. And that area is supposed to represent the geography within which you would service clients. So if you're a plumber or an electrician, sort of like small IT helper, and you work from home and you'll travel by car over some geography, that's your service area. And that's what you would indicate on your business profile instead of the address.
Yeah, I mean, the main goal is it's meant for local businesses that serve local customers. So we do see some national businesses that try and set them up, or businesses that don't necessarily meet with local customers try and set up Google business profiles. And the whole purpose is for Google wants to help local businesses. And so as long as you meet with local customers, either at your location or at their place, or wherever that those customers are at, like you go to that customer's home, yes, you can set up your own service area business, but the only caveat is if you don't have a storefront where customers can come to, you have to, as Stefan mentioned, you have to delete your address from your Google business profile. Does anyone else have anything they want to add to that? Nope. Okay, hopefully that answers your question. Ideas for using videos on Google Business Profile. Longer videos linked from a Google post, short videos posted to photos. So with regard to videos, right now they're still limited to 30 seconds, I believe, right, guys?
Something short.
Yeah.
So the guidelines, I think, I don't know if they've updated. I haven't checked recently in the last few months, but it says 30 seconds in the rules, but you can go longer than that. As long as the file size is shorter, it'll upload. So they might be changing, but you can try for a longer video than 30 seconds. But I like it. I like the engagement when people click on that, and it gives you a little bit more sense of who you are. You know, you put yourself in the video. People like to buy from people, not from necessarily a business, right? So you can showcase yourself. There's lots of different tricks depending on what category is you are to do that kind of thing. But I like the extra engagement that you get when you're clicking, and people don't necessarily even go to your website anymore. And so the more information that you can put on your Google listing, there's less chance of someone clicking away because they're right there. They've gotten what they needed, that you've answered their questions in that video or in the FAQ section or somewhere on that profile, and you have more chance of getting that call right away from that person.
Yeah, and just to add to what he just said, I haven't seen videos really help or change rankings really, but it is a great first introduction to your business. Whereas you just said that people don't necessarily even go to your website anymore; they call you straight from your listing. So trying to pack as much information and custom information as you can into your profile can really be helpful for generating more calls, even though it may not impact the rankings as much.
Yeah, one of my clients is a divorce attorney, and he does an amazing job of doing 30-second videos that answer divorce questions. And he times it perfectly, hits the 30-second mark every single time, and they're very informative. So there's definitely ways you can do that. Great question. All right. Do we have another question? Why does a listing get suspended, and what's the best way to get unsuspended? First off, there are a bunch of reasons why a listing can get suspended. The majority of reasons, well, I would say a lot of the reasons could be because you are violating one of the guidelines. And that's typically you're not following the guidelines that Google has outlined. So that could be everything from your business name to you're showing your address and you're a service area business and you're supposed to delete your address. You may be using an incorrect address like a post office box or a UPS box. You're not supposed to use those. You could be an online only business and those businesses aren't eligible. Does anyone else want to throw in some reasons why businesses might get suspended?
Yeah, I mean, I think, one of the biggest ones I see, kind of already mentioned, Sherry, is service area businesses that are displaying their address where it's a very simple, easy mistake to make. And when setting up your business profile, there is a checkbox that basically says, do you serve customers at your location? It's very easy to miss. That we see that happen quite a bit. On that side of things. And I'll also add that it's not uncommon for there to be false positives on suspensions as well. We do run into issues where it was just either Google's algorithm that just detected something funky that may not have been an actual issue, but there are definitely cases of false positives as well.
Yeah, I've seen the two majority of cases is one is triggered because you've made a change to your listing. So you're either changing your address or your title and the system will automatically flag some of those fields to say, well, those are important fields. We're going to double check you now. And so your listing will automatically go suspended. So be careful when you're updating your information, and always make sure you have that documentation about your business, whether it's a business registry or some kind of proof at hand in case your listing goes down when you're making a change of address or something like that. And the other thing is sometimes your listing could be up for years and someone reports you, whether it's legitimate or not legitimate. And that's when your listing will get suspended. So you might be in the guidelines, you might be compliant, but someone has reported you, a competitor or someone who did it by accident, says, oh, that's not real, that's not there, and reports you, and the algorithm accepts it. And now you have to go ahead and provide more proof to Google to get it back. So those are the user reporting, or a user or your own edits can suspend you.
And I've seen businesses get suspended when they've tried to set up more locations. So for instance, they may be a service area business and they're trying to set up more locations, and Google is saying, wait a minute, you're a service area business, which means that you're only supposed to have one location per metropolitan area within a 2-hour drive, and you're trying to set up more locations. This sounds a little fishy. And so they'll suspend the listings. So, as John mentioned, and as Dan mentioned, and as Stefan mentioned, there are really a number of reasons why a listing can get suspended. So
just before we move off this question, the second part of it was, how do you get out of suspension? And I just want to tack on to what Jan was saying. In my mind, there are two parts to it. You have to make sure that your business profile meets the guidelines. So as Sherry said earlier, know the guidelines document inside and out. Make sure that every field on your business profile meets the guidelines. But then the other half of it is you have to submit a reinstatement form. There, you can Google that, look for it, the business profile reinstatement request. And when you submit that form, you have an opportunity to upload documents to Google. And that's the critical other half. You have to basically prove to Google that you have a legitimate business, that it has the name that you're representing on your business profile, and that you're operating from the location you claim to be operating from. And you need documentation that proves that, things like a business license, for example, or a lease, or pictures of your storefront, anything that you can send to Google that's going to convince them that you have a legitimate business as you've outlined in your business profile. So make sure you meet the guidelines and then back it up with documentation.
yeah, great point, Stefan. And the onus is really on you. You do have to be the one to prove to Google that you're a legitimate business, and it's up to you. And it can be pretty tough sometimes. So great. So we have a really good question. Any insight into disappearing reviews? I've lost reviews from good customers that I know personally, and it was not deleted by the customer. Anyone want to take this one on?
I'll throw in a quick comment. Google actually put out a really great video on YouTube. I don't think I can post links in the chat, otherwise I would, because it's hard to find, and it's hard enough to find that I actually bookmarked it. They have this video that's a couple minutes long that sort of gives you an overview of why they take down reviews. And it's pretty thorough. It's surprisingly thorough, given how hush-hush Google can be about some of their algorithms. But it talks about how they look at user behavior. So they'll look at users who, create a profile so that they can leave one bad review somewhere. That type of thing might get taken down because the algorithm sees that as spammy. And that same algorithm actually combs through existing reviews on existing business profiles to look for things that might violate the policies. So Google has a very clear policy on what can be contributed by Maps users. Excuse me. A lot of it's really obvious. You can't swear, you can't intimidate people, you can't, have disparaging remarks, stuff that's pretty clear. But sometimes reviews will get taken down for reasons that aren't quite so obvious. And that's just part of the algorithm. And as mentioned earlier, there are always false positives. But there's an algorithm at work, both as they're posted and after the fact. And it's just looking for violations and taking them down.
Yeah. And so, yeah, so Google's algorithm, basically it's a spam algorithm, and it's looking to see if there's any suspicious behavior, not only with the patterns of reviews that that person may have left or that that business is receiving, but it also looks at previous reviews that that person left. So there's any number of reasons why those reviews may have gone missing. We have seen an uptick in missing reviews. And so, but for the most part, most of them are legitimately, taken down. So, Dan, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I'll add something. And yeah, it sucks because I have the last 4 reviews on my personal listing have not shown up. And it's very frustrating, especially when you don't get a lot of reviews and then people leave you and they're like, I have 5 and now I'm missing 2. Like it's really frustrating. So you have to reach out to support. Hopefully you have a screenshot of the missing review, send it to support. They usually don't help. So then you have to escalate it at the forum, and 50-50 chance that you'll get it back. It's a lot of work though. It's definitely a lot of work. And the other thing that no one mentioned is, yeah, right now the filtering algorithm is fairly strong, so it's taking out a lot of false positives, like Stefan said. But be careful. Sometimes people write things, and there's some words, and I don't know if Google has corrected it, but there's some words that like will get filtered. Obviously, obscenities, but there's other words that seem normal, like in a different context, and Google says, "Oh, toilet. Well, that's a bad word." So for a plumber, and then that review won't get on. So read the review really carefully. Sometimes there'll be a word in there that would be a bad connotation if seen in a different light, and that might have been the filter catching that word. So
And
it's odd sometimes.
Yeah, I can give you an example of that. So there's a company that they make door knockers, and every single post that they make has the word door knockers in it, but because knockers has a negative connotation about women, every post gets rejected, every single one. And I would presume that if any reviews are left and have the word door knockers in them, those reviews are going to get filtered out as well. So like Jan mentioned, words that we think are harmless, Google sometimes has a connotation of a negative connotation, and so they'll filter those out. So
I think that's a good thing to kind of mention here, share what you kind of touched on is it's not only for reviews, but it's for posts as well. Seeing a lot of the same issues of why a post won't go live is oftentimes linked to a single word that is a totally normal word that Google didn't understand the context of. So good point.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Are proximity and star ranking still the top 2 metrics for showing up in local SERPs?
I'll jump in here. I think proximity is definitely one of, if not the top ranking factors. And I would say star rating in general is not one of my top 2 or 3. I think it's more the context of the reviews. It is, the categories you chose, obviously what the searcher is searching for. And I think when you're looking at star rating overall, I think the one kind of side aspect of it is if somebody is searching for the best seafood restaurant, for example, it will prefer to show businesses that are ranked 4.5 or above if they use the best or top, things like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'll just add, similarly, if the query includes near me, then Google's going to put a little more weight on the proximity factor. But there's a pretty simple experiment you can do to sort of illustrate this thing, the way it's ranked to yourself, the impact of proximity versus reviews. If you're in a dense metro, there's going to be a coffee shop on every block, probably a couple of coffee shops. And if you pull out your phone and just search for coffee, you're going to get a list of what Google sees as being the highest ranking coffee shops to your current location. If you walk a couple blocks, it's going to change again. And it's worth noting in those results who's ranked first versus second versus third. I'm willing to bet that you're largely going to see they're ranked by distance from where you're standing, and not necessarily by the number of reviews or their star rating. And that's not, explicitly the case. I mean, you're not going to see some one star place in the rankings. Likely, they're all going to have a decent rating, but the distance from you is probably going to be the driving factor.
Yeah, and the other thing I think you need to keep in mind is Google looks at everything kind of holistically when it ranks you, even in the local pack and the local finder. And Google Maps. And so it takes a look at your website. It takes a look at your online presence. It takes a look at your authority. And so we have a lot of people say, well, I have 100 5-star reviews and I have my business profile all filled out. And, why is this business ranking higher than I am? That's because it's an algorithm. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of factors that go into Google's algorithm. And Google doesn't tell us those factors. Google won't even tell us those factors. And so there's not one or two things that will help you rank higher. It's a multitude of things. And so you have to keep that in mind. So, if you're not ranking as high as you want to, look at your website. Is there anything you could do on your website? Do your hours on your website match your Google business profile hours? Should you be maybe building more authority on your website? Do your online directories match your name, address, and phone number? That doesn't, matter as much as it once did. Do you have your Better Business Bureau? Is that accredited? Have you paid, the $500 to get that? Because, Google sees that as an authoritative, industry website. So, I mean, there's a bunch of factors that go into ranking. So it's not just one or two things. It just varies. Any tips or recommendations on if LSA, and that's for people that don't know, that's local service ads, should be a part of your strategy?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I think I'm definitely not an expert on LSA ads, but I do prefer them over typical PPC if I had to choose one or the other, because LSA ads, you are paying per actual lead, whereas with PPC, you're paying just for somebody to click on the link for your ad. So the conversion rate seems to be much higher than PPC, and you're limited to you're not bidding the same way that you are on PPC. So I definitely prefer LSA over PPC if I had to make a decision. But I think one of the big things in marketing is just the holistic thing. If you can be on GMB, be on PPC, LSA, you just have a higher chance of getting seen and getting more leads.
Great. Anyone else have anything to say about that? No. Okay.
I don't know much about LSA, but I do know that they appear at the top of the page, and
Which is always a good thing. All right. Is there an advantage to having an SAB over a physical location?
I guess it depends on what you consider an advantage. I would say there may be a slight perceived advantage, at least, for having a brick and mortar. A lot of business owners really like to see that pin drop on Google Maps. In my experience, that pin drop does not really lead to more conversions or anything like that, because I don't think people are really generally going around the maps looking for a pin when they're more likely to look at the listings themselves. But I think that's definitely a perceived benefit for a lot of business owners for brick and mortar over SABs.
Yeah, and I don't think, for instance, it's not worth trying to game the system in order to get that pin on Google Maps. So, for instance, if you are a landscaper, it's not worth the risk of either trying to set up a fake address so that you can get an address and supposedly keep your address up on your Google business profile so that you can keep your address up. It's just not worth the risk of losing of getting a suspension. It's not worth it. So, if you legitimately do not have a storefront with permanent signage and employees staff there during business hours, it's not worth it. So just, claim your home address. Chances are that's where your LLC is. That's where you're registered with your Secretary of State. Delete your address from your Google business profile, and that it is what it is. And that's where most people expect those types of businesses to run out of people's homes anyway. So, that's the best you can do. And that's what most of your competitors are going to do as well.
So I'd like to add, and we go back and forth on this, if showing your address or not showing your address is ranks you higher. I've seen both cases where a business is hiding the address, but then they get an office, they show the address, and then they start to rank higher. I've seen the opposite too, where someone was showing, then hides their address because they're trying to get in compliance. They hide the address, and then they start ranking higher. So there's different examples that I've seen, but one of the things that typically happens is that when you have an SAB, so let's say you're running your business out of your home, because you don't want people to see your address, so you hide your address on Google like you should. But then what happens is you don't go out and create some of those directories and citations, so other information out on the internet that Google is crawling. And so because you don't want to show your address anywhere, you don't go and create those extra directory listings because they ask you for your address. And so now there's less information about you out on the internet. And so you're a little bit restricted in the amount of, because you don't want to show your address to everywhere on the internet, right? So you're kind of holding yourself back. But if you don't want to, if you want to hide your address from everyone. So that's what typically happens is when I'm reviewing an SAB, they don't necessarily have all the citations that a storefront would have because they're trying to be more in the background, right? So that might be hurting a lot and contribute to that SABs rank more poorly than a storefront. It's because you're doing actually less work. You're showing less information to Google out on the internet. And Google, the algorithm only can understand information. So the more information it has about a business, the more it trusts that information. And so if you're not making those citations, well, now there's less information compared to someone else.
You may want to I think Bright Local has a list of service area directories where you don't have to list your address. I don't have the link, obviously, but I do recall them having a list of service area business online directories where you don't have to list your address. So you may want to do a search for that with brightlocal.com. Because I'm pretty sure they do so many great studies and lists, but I think they do have a list of online directories for service area businesses where you don't have to list your address. So that might be something to look into. All right. Do we have any more questions? All right. Do you think practitioner pages and business pages are beneficial to have? Should one be address and the other service area? So first of all, with practitioner pages, if the practitioner works out of the office where the business is, they should list that address because that's where they're physically working from. I think the main thing that they should think about is, should they have different main categories? And so that would be my recommendation, is to think about different categories. So for instance, I think about lawyers for the most part. That's the best example I can give. So if you have a law firm, their main category may be lawyer or law firm. But then each practitioner may want to have different legal specialties. Like one might be divorce lawyer, one might be bankruptcy lawyer as their main category. So those are the things you want to think about, because otherwise, if they all list the exact same main category, they're going to get filtered out in the search results in many cases. Does anyone else want to add to that?
I would just say that that should also inform your review strategy somewhat if you run a law firm and you have some lawyers setting up practitioner pages, keep in mind that if one of those lawyers goes to another firm, they're just going to change the address on their business profile and associate with that other firm and keep all of those reviews that they collected while they were at your firm. And so you probably want to make sure that your strategy is to get all reviews on the main profile for the business as opposed to the practitioner profiles. You might want some reviews on the practitioner profile so to sort of make them look good and help them rank to whatever extent that helps. But you don't want to lose all of your reviews to a practitioner just because they might leave the practice or the business at some point.
Yeah, I think having practitioner listings can definitely be beneficial. Just speaking from my own experience, when I'm trying to find my doctor's address, I just type in my doctor's name rather than the name of the practice, for example, and she pops right up, and I just use that on Google Maps, and I go, and I don't remember the practice itself has hundreds of locations, so Google's gonna wonder which one I'm looking for when I just type her name in, and I'm good to go.
Yeah, one thing you want to keep in mind too is the practitioner owns their listing. So you always, so if you are at a law firm, for instance, and someone is setting up the practitioner listings, you need to make sure that the practitioner is added as an owner on that listing, because technically they are the one that owns their own listing. So we've seen people try and take a practitioner's listing and hold it hostage. You can't do that. So if that lawyer or that dentist or that chiropractor decides to move to another practice, they get to take that listing with them, that practitioner listing with them. Okay. What are the recommended dimensions for post or product images? Oh, that's a good question. I don't think I have that one
I don't know.
with me. And you know what? Here's the other thing. It really varies depending on like mobile versus desktop too. The image sizes look different on different devices, even based on like tablets, like iPads and stuff like that. They do have image guidelines. I can look and see if I can find a link if someone else wants to talk about this real quick.
I'll throw in I did some testing with images for products. And I think you'll find in the guidelines that they just recommend some square shape. I think it's probably 720 by 720, maybe not, but something square. And as Sherry said, it's different on desktop and mobile. It's not just that, it goes beyond that. It depends on what your view is at the moment. So if you are on desktop, that's where I did my experiment, and you pull up a business profile, you're going to see some thumbnails for the products. They're going to be a certain size. And then if you click on one of them, you're going to see it displayed at a different size, and there are going to be other ones beneath it showing a thumbnail, but a thumbnail of a different aspect ratio than was showing in the search results. And so in that context, there are three different aspect ratios that Google's showing. And it doesn't just always take a square and crop it to a square. Sometimes it crops off the top, sometimes it crops off the top and a bit of the bottom. And in my experiments, I found that it actually seems to be able to identify the center of an image and crop it so that the focal point is what's showing in the thumbnail. So if you put some writing across the bottom and then you have an image and that thumbnail gets cropped, you might lose the writing across the bottom. It's really something that's pretty hard, if not impossible, to tune into perfection as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and it's challenging because I've noticed too that with managing your listing from Google search, like for post, for instance, they do not have like a crop feed. They don't have the crop feature when you're managing your posts and creating posts in Google search. Whereas if you're managing it from the business profile manager, like going to business.google.com, you can still crop images and post in that environment. But if you're doing it from Google search, you can't crop. So you used to be able to go in and, crop and make it bigger or smaller, whatever. So I just say post whatever you can. And when they click on it, hopefully it'll look good. So. Hope for the best. SEO benefits from Google Business Update post versus product post. Other than one advantage to categorize products, what's the difference? Benefits one post trump the other as far as SEO. So I'll just say this really quickly. Posts do not help with search engine optimization. So they don't help with SEO at all. Posts are meant to promote and talk about the products and features and events and stuff that you have going on at your business. So that's what they should be used for. Guys, do you have anything you want to talk about with regard to that?
Yeah. Don't put hashtags in your posts. I see people do that. It's not like Facebook. There's hashtags they don't link to each other. So you don't do that. The other thing I wanted to mention is that they won't help SEO directly, but the posts will help with the engagement on your listing. So the more clicks, more people touching something on your listing, clicking through your reviews and your posts, that engagement is getting measured by Google. And I think that's a factor in the sense that, like, if one business is getting a lot of interactivity and one listing is not, well, Google might show the one that has more interactivity because it's more interesting to the user, right? So that is a ranking factor. And the other thing was that sometimes the what you're posting, the text of the post will show up, and it's hard to explain without the visual, but it'll show up as a justification inside that 3-pack. So you have that 3-pack, and sometimes there's little snippets of sentences that pop up, and sometimes what you write in a post will show up in underneath your listing because it matches the query. Someone's searching for a specific thing, and it'll pull in text from your post because you've created a post about that topic. And so that's the last points that I have for that. Yeah.
And sometimes posts, the content that you have in your post could also be used to help answer questions that people ask as well. So if you have a post that is rich with content and someone asks you a question in the Q&A section, Google will look at reviews that people have left as well as your posts to see if one of those things may answer a question someone's asking. And also adding GPS location, for example, if metadata helps for service businesses when posting. No, geotagging photos doesn't help. Adding that type of information doesn't help. Anybody else want to add comments to that? Is it against the guidelines to add services in the product section, e.g. pest control services in the product section?
Jan smiling, so I want to know what he has to say. But I would say I just went down a small rabbit hole about this in the last week or two, helping somebody in the community forum. My understanding is that the products are actually governed by some advertising guidelines, and as long as you're not flogging something that's prohibited by Google, which would include like dangerous goods or drugs, alcohol, that kind of thing, you can put your services in as a product. And that might be temporary, and that's something you should I always think about with business profiles and the way Google generally functions. What's okay today might not be okay tomorrow, or what's a feature today might not exist in a week. But you're not going to get into trouble for it, and they're certainly going to post, and maybe one day they'll get taken down. But in general, take a service, spin it into a product, and give it an image, and it should be fine.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Use it. If it's showing up on your listing, use it. The worst thing that's going to happen is Google will take it away at one point. Your listing won't get suspended for doing something like that.
What's the best way to optimize a Google business profile for a service-based business?
I think there's multiple different ways to do this, but I think my favorite is to continue asking for your clients for reviews. Google not only looks at the number of reviews or the review rating, but they look at the context of the reviews as well. So when I'm speaking to clients, I will often suggest that they, when they ask their clients for a review, to kind of lead them a little bit in a way to get them to add a little bit more context to the review rather than just a 5-star rating, no words. So I often say to, when you're asked for a review, maybe ask the client to include what happened, where it happened, how you helped, things like this, because it can help kind of guide them to adding more context, which Google looks at in reviews. So that's one of my favorite ways to optimize them.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion because that will give them the opportunity to maybe put some keywords in there, So if you're a roofer, you may say something like, we really appreciate the opportunity to put a new roof on your house. We'd appreciate it very much if you could leave a review on, your experience with our roofing company. Tell us, how you like your new roof. And if you can give specific examples, that would be great, or something like that. That might give them the opportunity to actually give specific examples. They may say, our roof used to leak, now it doesn't leak anymore. You know what I mean? So that gives them hopefully leads them down the path to actually use some keywords in there. So that's a great suggestion, Dan. I'm getting a lot of offers to add my business to 50+ search engines. How important is that to have your business listed on these unknown search engines other than Google? I would say not. I don't even know what 50+ search engines there would be. Anybody else have thoughts?
I think I would say
No,
not as well.
they might mean citations. Oh, sorry. They might mean citations instead of search engines. There's a core 10, 15 now. Facebook, all those other ones that you want. But they're diminishing in power, but they're still, if you don't have them, you get them because it gives you a little bit of a leg up over the competitors, but don't pay a lot. Don't spend time on doing that kind of work.
Jan, do you want to explain what a citation or online directory is real quick?
Oh, manta.com or let's say this usadirectory.com, and it just lists thousands and hundreds of thousands of businesses, and there's a page for each one. And so Google doesn't really use that to information. It has all the information in the Google listing now. So some of them have value, like if you have a Facebook, if you have a BBB listing, or if you have some other directories, business directories that are still relevant, but there's a lot of irrelevant ones that you don't need to pay money to get.
Yeah, so a citation or online business directory is basically any place where a website lists your name, your company's name, address, phone number, and Yellow Pages would be one of them. Yelp is another example. Facebook, there's just a ton of examples, and some of them have more credibility in Google's eyes than others. So thanks.
I'll just throw in this. If it is search engines and not citations, and
Yeah.
it probably is citations, but if it's search engines, keep in mind that those search engines are not going to send people to your business profile. They're going to send people to your website. And then an analytics tool will be able to tell you where your website traffic is coming from. And I think you'll find that 90+% of it is coming from Google. Unless you're really active on social, and in some industries, social can be really powerful. You can get a lot of traffic from social, but you're not going to be getting a lot of traffic from 50+ search engines.
Thanks, guys. Do you have another question? What are the most effective tactics to generate Google business profile reviews?
I'll throw in timing. For me, I think it's really important to make sure you ask your customer for a review at the right time, which basically means not too early before your transaction is complete. Transaction depends on the nature of the business. For example, if you're a roofer, there might be a long time between when you sign a contract with a customer and when you finally delivered a finished roof. So you don't want to do it too early, and you don't want to do it too late. If you do a good job and the transaction's complete and the customer is happy, that's the moment. That's when they're going to be most likely. If you wait too long and the happiness or the memory of the experience begins to wane, they're going to be less likely to want to write a review. So think about the timing as to when they're going to be happiest and you're going to be top of mind and they're going to be willing to write.
Yeah, Stefan,
I tell people, to send a follow-up email a week after the service is completed. Say, just checking in, how'd it go? Is everything okay? Any problems, depending on what it is? And, it gives, if that person was having some, oh crap, they didn't clean up properly after their job, and they have those, those negative thoughts in their head, with that follow-up email a few days later, a week later, you're preempting those negative reviews a little bit. And at the same time, you can ask, oh, if if everything's okay, I appreciate you leaving a review. So you send that follow-up email, but not just asking for a review. You're saying, hey, I'm just checking in. Is everything okay? Is there anything that I might have missed or that you want to talk about? And then now they see that you're proactive and you care. And then you'll have more chance of getting a positive review and avoid that negative review.
Yeah, and those are great suggestions. I love the idea of preempting a negative one by proactively, fixing something that may have been wrong. I love that. The other thing I want to caution people against is do not send a mass mailing out to all of your customers at once asking for reviews. Because if you suddenly get an influx of 100 reviews at one time, Google's going to find that really suspicious, and that's going to raise a big red flag to them. So I was working with a bank once, and we were talking about the importance of reviews, and the bank manager was like, yay, we're just getting ready to send out a mailing to all of our customers asking for reviews. And I'm like, no, don't do that. You have to ask for those reviews naturally. Like Stefan and Jan mentioned, they have to be at the right time. And so don't ever do a mass mailing to all of your customers asking for reviews. It has to be a natural event.
I'll just add something I think really important to that. Sherry was saying that it looks suspicious to Google, and I think the translation on that is it can lead to a suspension. And I have absolutely seen a case where a business owner got a new CRM, put all of their clients in it, and had a feature where you could ask for a review. So he clicked the button and they all got a review request, and he got a couple hundred reviews in a week or so, and sure enough, he got suspended.
All right. I created a Google business profile for my business for a digital service, not physical, and it went live and is running actually pretty well. Is that a problem? I guess not. So I'm
Well, online only businesses, you're not supposed to have a listing, but
yeah,
it depends on how you swing it. If you have a local business, you can keep it, but you're not going to have a large reach, right?
Yeah, so I guess if you're a digital service like a digital marketing agency and you meet with local clients, that's what I do. So I'm a digital marketing agency. I run my business from my home. So local clients that I have, I go out and meet with them at their place of business or at coffee shops. So that's perfectly okay. But if you are doing online only business and you're an online only company, then you don't qualify for a Google business profile. So, yeah, you really don't qualify. You should really do the right thing and contact Google support and ask them to take it down.
I think the litmus test there is whether or not you engage with your clients face-to-face. So
Right.
If you're a storefront, you engage with them face-to-face at your retail location. And if you're a service business, that face-to-face interaction happens at the client's location. But if you operate in some sort of business like online only, where there is no face-to-face, then you're not eligible. To me, that's just sort of a simple question for eligibility. Is there face-to-face engagement?
Yep. And if just because you're getting away with it right now doesn't mean you're going to keep getting away with it either. And it's also probably not going to be doing you any good in the long run anyway, because your Google business profiles is really local. And so you're only reaching that local area anyway. So it's not going to do you much good anyway, other than probably get you suspended in the long run.
Yeah, thanks a lot for everything that you guys have said and all the questions from our viewers. We're going to take only 2 more questions just to end it here. And I just want to let everyone know that we didn't have time to answer all of the questions that were submitted today, which is sort of good, but I understand our viewers who are eager to get their questions answered. So One of the questions that we have left, I'm going to bring it up on the screen.
What are some of the ways to get social profiles displayed on the knowledge graph? On your knowledge panel, I'll just answer this one real quick, and then I'll let you guys answer the next one. On the knowledge panel, Google determines, or the knowledge panel, also known as your business profile, Google determines what social media profiles are brought in, unless you guys have anything different to say about that.
I think the only thing I'll add is that Google's looking for consistency there too. So, for example, if your business name and address are not consistent throughout, Facebook versus your Google profile listing, that's going to make it, give it a harder time to show up on your profile. So, make sure all the information is as consistent as you can possibly get it.
Great tip.
And it has to be active too. Real quick, it has to be active. If you don't post, then Google's not going to connect.
Awesome, guys. Thanks. And our last question. What about having a company with 5+ locations within a service area? Should separate Google business profile accounts be created or utilize a franchise type account? Okay, so generally 5+ locations within a service area, it would not be okay. Generally, you can only have one location for a service area per metropolitan area within a 2-hour drive. You guys can help me.
Yeah, I think so. If it's a brick and mortar type of business, right? Like you can't have five like gas stations within a service area, if I'm understanding correctly. What the question is. And I think overall, the basis of the question is, do I have to create a separate email address and account for each of the 5 locations, or should I just have them in one single account? It's generally up to you, but I like having them in one single account, just based on the ease of everything.
I'll add that if you have multiple service area locations, which can be done, they shouldn't have overlapping service areas. And I think that's really important.
Right. Thank you for all your answers, for your contribution to helping our viewers get their GBP questions answered. Unfortunately, we didn't have enough time to answer all of them, but who knows, maybe we'll host an event a bit later on in the future, and you guys can join us again, and perhaps there will be additional updates to GBP. Perhaps you still have your questions, and we will definitely think of some way to help you. I just have a couple of more slides that I wanted to show you guys about our platform, where you can SEO rank and where you can do everything from researching your competitors, researching your own website, to keeping track of everything, and also managing different services like Google Analytics, Google Search Console, and we're also developing features that will allow you to also manage your GBP account there as well. But that is coming on a bit later on in the future. And so yeah, you're welcome to scan this QR code and get a free trial of SEO ranking. And if you need to level up your knowledge of SEO basics, we have a course running that you can go ahead and sign up for, and it includes a lot of different modules that take you through the basics, and we are preparing other courses, additional courses, where we will speak on different aspects of SEO. So once again, I want to thank our wonderful panel, Sherry, Dan, Jan, and Stefan. I want to thank all of you guys for taking the time to be with us here today and answering the questions of our guests. So once again, thank everyone for being here, and we hope to do something similar in the future.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.